What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Lights Out Fantasy Football Podcast, Process Over Results, Week 15. This is the live show. You guys have been here before. If you haven't, welcome. We're happy to have you. Today's going to be a little bit different. You have myself, Mike Tagliere, obviously. You know, you hear me all week long. Now I get to talk to somebody else, and I'm pretty excited about it. I have, as usual, my co-host, Joe Holka. Joe, what's going on, man?
Yeah, not too much. Coming off my best week of the year, so hopefully I don't piss it all away in Week 15.
That is fantastic. Well, it's good to hear that you had a good week because, you know, I on Sunday morning shows, I do a cash game lineup, and going into last week, we were 11 for 13. So I've been doing really well with it. But I had the worst week of the year. And I just can't wait for Sunday to happen so I can get past that. And alongside of us, we actually have a special guest today, guys. Jake is traveling. Jake's our usual weekly guest, but we have a fantastic guest, a friend of the show, a friend that I've talked to in the off season with my wife. We have Rumford Johnny here. You guys know him on Twitter as Rummy. Rummy, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Happy to sort of improve the looks of the podcast now that Jake isn't here. Even though it's a still photo, you know, because I have to keep it like real like that. But yeah, good to be with you guys. You guys are two of my favorite people in the industry, and always fun to talk football with you guys.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk nothing but football. Today's all about tournaments. We're going to talk about some lower owned guys, maybe some chalk plays that we do like, but we have it's going to be a little bit different today. We are going to touch, Joe's going to give you a little insight into maybe some of the game selection you guys should do. And then instead of doing Jake's lock of the week that we've been doing, since we have a special guest, we're not going to give away Jake's segment. We're going to let Rummy talk to you about defenses because he said basically as of late, he's been really hitting on his defenses and he thinks it's like a very underrated part of lineup construction. So we're going to let him talk about that for a minute. But first, I want to let you guys know, again, thank you guys for supporting the show. It allows us to keep our sponsor. We have our sponsor today by Roto Tracker. Guys, it is an amazing tool for daily fantasy football sports players. So basically what it does, to keep it short and sweet without going through too many mumbo jumbo, like all that stuff, if you want to know how you're doing in all of your DFS games, whether it be cash games, whether it be tournaments, whatever the case may be, different price levels, this is what does it for you. It tracks it and basically tells you where you can improve, where you can get better. So that way, you know, when you're spending time doing your research, maybe you should spend it somewhere else that you've been struggling rather than, you know, doing the same thing over and over. So basically, I tested it out myself. You can go to the link that actually is for our site. You go to, it is rototracker.com/POR as in process over results. And what it does, it gives you a free membership where you're able to import your DFS games that you've already played, up to 250 of them for free. It'll analyze them. And then from there, you guys can decide whether or not you want to go premium. And you automatically get a 10% discount by using our link. Just give it a shot. See if you like it free. If you don't have to sign up. It's not required or anything like that. But, one of the things that you want to use it for, obviously, is for game selection, so you know what you're playing. And every single week, we have Joe Holka here talking to you guys about game selection. And things are changing, Joe. You were telling me you were excited this week to talk a little bit about the different things coming up in weeks 15 and 16.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a little bit before the show started that finding the optimal plays is not really the hard thing. It's trying to differentiate yourself through ownership. And then another part of that is game selection. So Road Tracker is great. If you haven't checked it out, be sure and do that. But this week, things are a little bit different. We do a Saturday game. So have you been following along? We have been kind of pounding up the $9 slant and the $150 power sweep just because of the relatively like small field and the payout structures are pretty flat. So those remain good options. But what I want you guys to try this week is to try and differentiate yourself a little bit different by playing some of these other slates that are available. So I say this for a couple of reasons. A lot of times these tournaments do have smaller fields, which is something that I personally like to target, kind of going up in stakes a little bit. But you can find tournaments, especially even on FanDuel. I know we primarily talk about DraftKings, but some of these larger multipliers that kind of come out of nowhere. So you can even find like a 2.5 times your money at the cash rate for your buy-in at the same percent payout as some of the main slate tournaments that just pay out 2x. So for example, FanDuel this week, I'm thinking I might go pretty hard on the Saturday to Sunday slate. There's 9 games, so it's not like a super small player pool or anything like that. And the tournament that I really like is the $100 Blitz on that slate. It's a really good tournament. The structure is you get 20% paid out, but it's only 225 people, and it's still got $2,500 on top. So you're going to 2.5 times your buy-in, and that stuff like really matters in comparison to DraftKings, where a lot of times those tournaments, you're only going to get 1.5 or 2x at the most on your min cash. So especially when you catch overlay on some of these other slates that aren't really filling, it's just a really good way to kind of differentiate yourself. And it essentially turns into like a double up type contest with massive upside and a lower rake as well. So that's kind of some of the stuff I'm looking at this week.
I like it. One of my friends actually texted me the other day, and he's like, Mike, you can't play it. I know. He's like, but he said he's been having a lot of better luck playing some of the like early slate only contests, and he's been doing that, and he said it's been working out better than the main slate. So maybe give it a shot, see how that goes. You can analyze that stuff at rototracker.com/POR. Make sure you guys do that to help. So let them know that you're supporting the show. Rummy, we're going to go to you now. We're going to talk about those defenses. You were saying that lately defenses have been your thing. Let's talk about a couple defenses that you look to be targeting. I know Joe's got one in his mind, but who are a couple defenses that are on your mind?
Well, before I get to that, let me just talk a little bit about game theory, about defenses. I do tend to sort of try to capitalize on, obviously, home defenses. I think at home, defenses just naturally play better. There's crowd noise. A lot of things work in their favor to sort of improve their play. So that's always something I kind of look for. It's not always, the deciding factor, but it definitely plays into it. I also look into sort of teams that have been maybe overlooked throughout the season because they haven't played well, but maybe they got a player back and they're starting to play a little bit better over the past couple of weeks, and they're sort of being overlooked because they're not one of the top 2 or 3 names that always keep coming up, like Denver, the usual suspects, Baltimore.
Yeah.
So I try to look past that, scroll down a little bit, and also kind of look at, that perfect storm. Do they have somebody like on special teams that is really blowing up lately, and can I double dip on that also as well? Maybe do even a stack of in particular this week, Kansas City, obviously Tyreek Hill, and Kansas City is a great stack at home. Their defense is getting healthy. They're not the most expensive defense. I forget where they are right now. I don't have all that stuff in front of me, but
3,400.
Yeah, they're not the most. And there's probably like 3 or 4 that are more expensive than they are this week. So if you get a piece of them and Hill as well, it could be a really sweet stack for you as well. Arizona at home too. I mean, they're cheaper. They're getting healthier as well. I love playing them at home. It's just a totally different vibe for them. One that I don't know that a lot of people will be playing is just because of the narrative. I think New England's defense is pretty cheap this week. They played really well last week. They're starting to really click a little bit. Their pass rush is coming together. And it's obviously there are guys on that defense like Aqib Talib on the opposite side that Bill Belichick can kind of attack a little bit. So I think the New England defense with a quarterback like Simeon, they can certainly get into his head. They don't really have much of a running game at all, so they have to throw. So I think when you're in a situation where potentially they'll be having to throw the football, they won't have much of a run game to lean on, then you can kind of get into the quarterback's head a little bit, dial up some blitzes a little bit, and kind of frustrate Trevor Simeon, who's a solid quarterback, but he's certainly not somebody that can put the team on his back. So I think they're going to be overlooked because, again, this is an important game to both teams, but very important to New England. And historically, they haven't played really well against Denver. So I think when you look at that situation, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think New England kind of will run LeGarrette Blount, not to get off on another tangent about running backs or anything just yet. But I think their game script will be really keep it simple and then pepper in throws here and there and control the clock. And that'll keep the score low, and that will allow the defense of the Patriots to sort of tee off a little bit late in the game. So I do like them. And obviously Baltimore at home, coming off last week, where against Brady, that narrative is that the Pats at home are a much better team, and Brady was able to kind of put up numbers against them. I think people will be kind of off them this week, but they're in a perfect situation at home. They got Wentz. They don't, that offense, that Philly offense isn't great, and they're going to be able to kind of capitalize and frustrate him a little bit and force him into some throws. So, and I'm certain they're going to be dialing up blitzes against Wentz this week. So I do like them as well. And they're all kind of underpriced. They're not the most expensive guys on the board. So if you, like I said, if you scroll down a little bit, you find these guys that are home defenses as well. That's generally where I'm going. And I think that, like, when I look at last week, I had some of Atlanta and I also had some of Tampa Bay. They were facing Drew Brees, with the the Drew Brees home split narrative. Their defense was starting to come up a little bit. They were starting to get after the quarterback. I love that play, and it was solid. It was 11 points. It wasn't what the Atlanta defense gave me, but it was still only $2,400 last week. So I was able to kind of fit other guys into my lineup and help me win, or at least cash in some GPP. So I think that's important to know too, that if you're able to save somewhere between like 500 to maybe 700 on your defense, you're able to kind of squeeze those guys in that we really want to get into our lineups for GPPs.
Yeah, I think just unpacking a couple of the things that you said, I think that were really important. One thing as far as the Patriots this week that I really like is the volume that we're going to see from Simeon. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. So if you can move down and get the Patriots at under 5% ownership, I think that play makes a ton of sense. I think one thing you noted kind of about how Atlanta was obviously the blow-up defense of the week last week, but that wasn't the reason why they won people GPPs. They won GPPs because they're around 5% owned or less in most tournaments.
Right,
so,
exactly. Yep.
So if you're going to go after some of these huge spreads this week, that's fine, but you are going to have to differentiate somewhere else because they're going to be probably 15% owned or higher. So the way you go crazy on some of those weeks with the Falcons D play is to find a D that's going to be lower owned. And I think you can do that by kind of targeting a lot of those home defenses and kind of the favorites as well is something I like to look at. But one defense I sense while we're here, it's one of the best defense spots of the year, in my opinion. The Vikings D at home against Andrew Luck. And some people just don't want to play the defense against Andrew Luck, but he makes mistakes, and they're probably not going to have Dante Moncrief in this game. We talk about passing volume. They are going to pass, and they're favored at home. So the main thing that I'm kind of looking at in this game is that the Vikings do pressure quite a bit, and their defensive line is a top 5 defensive line in adjusted sack rate, and they're going to face the Colts offensive line that ranks in the bottom 5 in that category. So I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Vikings pass rush, and there's just too many factors that I look for that it's basically just all green. It's one of the best spots I've seen all year, and the best part about it is they're going to be under-owned, probably under 5%, but in a lot of tournaments, probably 2 to 3%.
You know what's crazy for me? Nobody's talking about the Raiders defense. I don't know why nobody I'd be curious to find out what their projected ownership is, because the Raiders. So think about it. Like Phillip Rivers over the last 7 weeks, he's been sacked 20 times. His offensive line has always been bad. Phillip Rivers over the second half of the seasons has been pretty brutal over the past 3 years. So it's not like a 1-year trend or anything. Like we have a trend. He's thrown 14 interceptions over the last 7 games. The Raiders defense has been playing a lot better ever since the first 5 weeks of the season. So for me, I actually love the Raiders defense. And I think that I'm planning on using them in my cash game lineup to put out there. I did find the Patriots to be extremely interesting. But I don't want to spend too much time here just because like we have a lot of stuff to hit on, but that's obviously more than we've talked about defenses on this show. So let us know. Let us know
different ways you can go.
Yeah, there really is. But that's what I'm saying. Let us know if you guys like that about the show, because obviously we want to do things that you guys like. But one area where I'm kind of twisted this week, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it, is quarterback. You know, I said it to Joe before the show started, Rummy, that if you told me that every quarterback costs the same amount on the main slate, I don't even know who I would pick. I really just don't even know at this point. Like there's so many things up in the air. I'm leaning towards quarterbacks that would either play indoors or they're in non-division games or they're at home. Like Joe Flacco is probably my favorite quarterback. And I know that's not like a real confidence inspiring, but Rummy, who are you liking at quarterback this week?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Flacco. Certainly, I think there's reasons to like Kaepernick as well, just because of the game script. I think he's going to have to do something. And I also think, too, with Kaepernick specifically, even though he hasn't necessarily always been using his feet in games, I think that Atlanta's going to dial up some pressure on him. And I think he's going to be able to scramble for some big runs. And I think he certainly can on the carpet. I love the fact that they're in Atlanta. You know, that's one of those insulated games that you're talking about without the weather sort of affecting, the over-under. Yeah. I think that I love that game. I love Matt Ryan on the opposite side. I think Matt Ryan, without really looking at, even though he's a little higher priced, Matt Ryan without kind of really singling out any specific target, because we're obviously, looks like we're not going to have Julio. So rather than trying to scramble to figure out who he's going to throw to, then just go naked Matt Ryan and don't worry about his targets and just kind of work from that. You can obviously still be able to fit in one of those running backs that you really like Bell or DJ, and squeeze them in. But also I like Andy Dalton, surprisingly. I mean, even though it's a divisional game, I don't mind Andy Dalton. I think that his price is so low. I think in these type of games at home, I think he certainly could surprise people. He's one of those quarterbacks that has and are they getting AJ back this week? Or is he just practicing?
No, they're calling him doubtful now. They're saying he's going to warm up before the game, but there's no reason he should play in this game. I don't think he's playing.
It'd be nice if he was on the field at least as a decoy, but I think he's underappreciated a little bit, and he's going to be really, really low owned. I mean, like single digit low owned, and obviously I think Tyrod Taylor. I mean, it's just one of those get well situations. I hate to go down narrative street too much, but with quarterbacks, but obviously both Rex and Tyrod are on the hot seat in Buffalo. They're at home. Cleveland is really, I mean, they're the get right defense for any team, really. And Sammy's starting to get healthy now. He played a full slate of snaps last week. So he definitely has some weapons more at his disposal this week. He can make stuff happen with his feet. He can certainly meet 4X, I believe, on his cost. He's at, I think, 5.7 on DraftKings. So he's somebody that can make that 4X for you in a tournament. So I don't mind. I mean, I don't mind a Tyrod Sammy stack. I mean, if you don't want to go, with McCoy on the other side of that, you can always just go Sammy and Tyrod and kind of get unique that way, because I think they'll probably be pretty underowned.
Yeah, I like the Kaepernick. That was one player I'm kind of interested in. The whole thing with Andy Dalton, and Joe, I'll ask you your opinion. My worry on him, he's not safe enough to use in cash. I don't think he has the upside to use in a tournament. Since losing AJ Green, he's got just one game over the 16 points, I want to say. The Steelers have only allowed 3 quarterbacks this year to hit the 18-point mark, which is they're actually better against the pass than people have given them credit for, and it has to do with plays per game. They're only allowing their opponents about 60 plays per game, so that's kind of low. But Joe, what's your opinion on some of those quarterbacks, and do you have any of your own that you'd like to play in tournaments?
Yeah, I have a couple of these guys that Rummy touched on my list here, but one thing about Dalton that I do like is home underdog quarterbacks typically provide a ton of value just from kind of an ownership and production standpoint. It's one of the studies that Jonathan Bales did in his latest book. So always trying to do that whenever I can. One thing I thought was interesting about Colin Kaepernick this week is he's done really well in games where the total is really high. So even though the spread isn't really in his favor, I do like the fact that he's probably going to do quite a bit of running in this game, I would hope, and it is indoors. So really like him. I'm kind of a little bit nervous about Tyrod Taylor and Matt Ryan because the spread is so big. I try and steer clear of guys in double-digit spreads because you might be in a situation where they get way ahead and they just don't have to throw the ball anymore. But one guy that I really like that I haven't really heard anyone talk about this week is Drew Brees, 6,600. I mean, he's another slight underdog. He's not at home, and the Cardinals D has played pretty well at home, but they've also given up 28 points per game over the last month and a half. And I think this game in general has one of the highest probabilities of any this week to shoot out. So I like Drew Brees for an ownership perspective because no one's going to play him on the road because the splits are – everyone's talking about his splits, but, I mean, he plays well indoors and he plays well – he should play well indoors in Arizona, I believe, too. And his salary's dropped more than $500 over the past month, and he struggled a bit. So I think you can get Drew Brees at under 10% ownership this week, and that's a situation I really like at 6,600 with not a lot of options that are super attractive.
I think it's interesting with Tyrann Mathieu apparently coming back this week. I don't think he's playing at 100%, and even if he was, he's been playing under standard levels. Honestly, he's graded out as a below average cornerback. He hasn't played well at safety when they asked him to play there. Like he just hasn't been the same player this year, and I'm guessing that the injuries are just starting to add up. Tyvon Branch went to IR, and Justin Bethel might have to see some time at cornerback this week, and Bruce Arians called him a failure in progress this week, and that's never a good thing when you're a cornerback in the NFL.
Arians is off the rails. He's throwing to his tight end. Like, he has no idea what he's doing.
No, he really doesn't. Actually, Jermaine Gresham, we'll talk about him because I actually like him. But let's talk about some running backs. And so, Joe, I'm going to give it to you first because usually we try and pass it back and forth so that we don't steal each other's players. But I want to throw one totally unique strategy at you. You can throw it right back at me. You can do whatever you want with it. But what do you think about using both Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman in a tournament or cash?
I had a feeling you were going to ask this. I heard one other person talking about it. It was kind of a situation earlier this year where people were thinking about playing both the Oakland running backs when Latavius was out. And I don't really like it in tournaments, to be honest, because I think your upside is pretty capped. But I think it is a viable strategy in cash because you don't really care how many points each of them get to you. You just need a combined score of kind of try and get that equity of whatever it's going to be 150 yards on the ground against the 49ers. So, yeah, I think it's in play in cash. I'm probably not going to do it in tournaments, though.
All right. So give me some running backs that you like. Give me one up high. Like if you're going to pay up, are you going to pay up for DJ? Are you going to go down to McCoy and then like maybe a mid-level and like a lower price guy?
Sure. I mean, when you can, I think you got to try and get in David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. There's not a whole lot of reason to think that they're not going to be two of the highest scoring guys. Their floor is just so high and their ceiling is as well with the amount of targets they're getting. But one guy, if you are going to pay up, I think most people are going to go all the way up. And I really like DeMarco Murray this week at 6,900. It's quite a bit of savings at Kansas City, but he's still getting over 21 touches per game, which is over LaShawn McCoy, which is not far behind Ezekiel Elliott. But the difference is his price is just so much less this week, and I think his ownership is going to be pretty low as well. So if you can get him or somewhere around that 5% range, I really like DeMarco Murray.
Nice. My only thing with David Johnson, and Rummy, let's hear your take on it, is that I think he's a better play in tournaments. And the reason I say that is because I think you handicap yourself a little bit in cash by using him, that you might have to go like that little stars and scrubs route, where in tournaments you kind of have to do that anyways. So like, what's your take on the top of the running back tiers?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think also that he'll be lower owned. He's a little higher priced, obviously, than Bell. And strangely, Bell coming off that monster game – you would think his price would have gone up like 3,000, 4,000, and DJ's it did actually, which was strange because he actually didn't meet 4X last week, which was frustrating if you played both of them. So I think that you probably can go to him. He's at home on the carpet, which I love, and he's still their offense, really. I mean, and he's going to be slightly lower owned than Bell this week, I believe. And that will help you a little bit, at least differentiate you a little bit, especially in tournaments. I like McCoy. I think you can kind of – I don't think you necessarily have to have Bell or DJ in your lineup. I think you can certainly go to McCoy. The game script is perfect for him at home. I mean, they're going to run the football. Even if they control and have a lead, they're going to keep running with him. I'm not really worried too much about Gillislee at all. So I think McCoy is definitely in play. I don't like that he went up so much. I mean, it's still when anybody gets to that like 9,000 range, I don't love it. But when you compare and contrast to the other two, it's kind of a nice pivot to go completely fade the top two and go to McCoy, and maybe go to what you were talking about, somebody like Freeman or Coleman, and a guy I like as well, and you guys may or may not like, but I think this is just some insider stuff that I think works out pretty well. I think that it's a blunt game for New England. I think that they ride him in this game early. Brady knows that Von Miller is like his personal backpack, and he's going to want to initially impose their will. They've been really, really good. You look what they did against Baltimore. They were able to run the football against Baltimore, especially up the middle. And Baltimore is much more stout against the run than Denver is, and I think they'll be able to kind of capitalize on that, run the football, and sort of pepper in little passes from Brady. Nothing really, nothing deep, nothing crazy right off the bat, and then see how the game script plays out. If they're able to kind of hold on to a little bit of a lead, then you'll see Brady take a few shots, maybe kind of a little FU to Aqib Talib downfield and test him a little bit because he knows where he can beat him. And, and I think that's kind of where it's going to go. So I do like Blunt. I think this is one of his games. He's still 5K. Carlos Hyde in that matchup with Atlanta on the carpet. I mean, I just think that when you look at San Francisco, they just that team that's going to stick to their guns and they're not going to sway from their game plan, their game script, if you will. They're going to just keep running the football. Kaepernick's going to use his legs as well, and they're going to feed Hyde, and they're not going to get crazy. Even if they fall behind, they're going to run the football.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So Hyde at 5.9K is still really nice. And like I said, if you did McCoy Hyde, you can go McCoy Hyde and Blunt in your flex if you want to, and that's a really nice little running back. And you don't have to necessarily chase the top two.
Yeah, I've actually been toying with that idea. I actually had Blunt in one of the little roster constructions I was working with, and I usually do them on Saturday, but I started playing around with it a little bit. And I like Blunt, but here's the issue. On DraftKings, Blunt, to me, he has to score to be even worth playing in cash, period. Like, he has to score, otherwise he's useless. Whereas other running backs, if they catch a few passes, they can make up for that. Like, I'm looking at Kenneth Farrow at 4,400. I think he's probably a safe play in cash. He played 55 of 65 snaps for the Chargers last week. And guys, I really have no idea why people are talking about Ronnie Hillman. Like, this is a guy that's been passed. He's been passed from team to team. It's like nobody wants him. He's averaged 2.9 yards per carry. Sure, he played, behind the Denver offensive line in Minnesota, but it's not like San Diego is a walk in the park either. You know what I mean? But I do think Farrow's a good play. I love the LaShawn McCoy call. I actually prefer McCoy. I think that you can get him at 8,900 and essentially get the performance that you do out of, say, like a Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson. Even if it's a slightly lower, you're going to get that much of an upgrade more, like your number 2 running back or your number 1 wide receiver, whatever the case. But I do like that. So that pretty much wraps up running backs. Joe, do you have anybody you want to talk about the lower end level that you like?
Yeah. We didn't mention Kenneth Dixon, and he's going to be pretty chalky this week, I think. I probably am with you. I prefer Farrow in cash games, but I need to look a little bit more at the Dixon situation. Is he going to get all the carries there? He's probably going to get, at least 15 carries, right?
I worry about the game script in that one. Rummy was talking about that, and you have to kind of project these things sometimes. And do you really think that that Philly is going to be able to score on Baltimore like a lot? So honestly, this could be like, so if you remember before the New England game against Miami, Terrence West actually, so it had been trending towards Kenneth Dixon getting the start. And then Terrence West that week had more snaps, he had more touches, and we were like, what the hell's going on? The more I looked at it, the more I was like, you know what, this game was a blowout. I think they just wanted to use up Terrence West. And so sure enough, Patriots was like, that was a win, a game that they really wanted to win, and they used Dixon a whole lot. So I think this could be a really messy timeshare. I'm avoiding it if I can.
I'll say this too, guys. I think that and what's overlooked is that Philadelphia actually, where he's going to be utilized, where Dixon's going to be utilized, Philadelphia actually does a pretty decent job of stopping the running back between the 20s. So outside that, I think that's a little different. That's why I think obviously the passing game is in full play for Flacco this week. But the running backs might be a little bit muddy. So I actually fade both of them this week. I think that's kind of really risky.
I'm with you on that one. And that can lead us into, like, we can talk some wide receivers, and I'm going to give you my crazy call right off the bat, because that's just what I'm doing this show. It seems like that's where I'm going.
You're the chalky guy.
He's not chalky. I can promise you this. Nobody's talking about him. Brashad Perriman at 30.
Oh, no, I liked him. I got him written down, dude.
Nice. Really nice. I like it, dude. Honestly, when we were talking about the Ravens and what the Eagles do well and what Joe Flacco does well, throws the long ball. There was a reason I liked Deshaun Jackson last week, and he's caught in passes. So the part with me with Perriman that has concern, which is the reason you'd never use him in cash right now, is his snap counts are like down in the 30 percentile area. Like they're not very good, but he's getting targeted when he's on the field. And if he sees 6 targets against Philly, I'll take that shot in a tournament, because all he needs to do is catch one long one, and he totally he quadruples his value at 3,100, right, Rummy?
Yeah, he's going to be like 1% owned, really. I mean, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a battle between whether people are going to want – I think Mike Wallace is probably the chalk of that group, the wide receiver group on Baltimore, and I think Steve Smith's probably just behind him. And I think people will be battling to decide who they'll use, whether they'll use Wallace or they'll use Smith. And like you said, Perriman, we see the deep shots being taken to him, and it's a perfect week for them to kind of exploit that. And I think they certainly will. I think they were frustrated a little bit last week, and I think this week they'll light it up at home. And Perriman's like that perfect 1% GPP winner for you. So if you wanted to stack Flacco, you could still do Flacco and one of his other wide receivers and still have Perriman as your flex, and still kind of get away with that if you wanted to really do a big stack.
Yeah, Steve Smith has been fading a little bit, and honestly, where the Eagles have been beaten lately, it's on the perimeter. So that's why Mike Wallace I just think Brashad Perriman is a great tournament option because, as you
No,
mentioned,
I like it.
Wallace would be the fade there. Now, so Joe, if you had all the money in the world and you're able to spend it up on one wide receiver this week, who is it?
Man, like, it's tough. Like, I haven't been considering going all the way up, definitely in cash, just because I like the running back so much more. One guy that I've been kind of looking at in the mid-range, maybe you guys have a stronger take on some of the elite guys, but Stephon Diggs this week at 6,200 is someone I really like. I have these trends I use on Fantasy Labs to kind of project value and lower ownership, and the two guys that were on the top this week by a long shot were Stephon Diggs and Rashard Matthews. So those are two guys I'm going to roll out in tournaments quite a bit. Diggs getting 10 targets per game since the new offensive coordinator took over, and he's caught 6 or more in every game before last week against the Jaguars. So I think just that previous production that he's had versus the Colts this week, I think he's just going to shred through those guys in a 6,200 on DraftKings. I really like him. Rashard Matthews, just touching on quickly, he's kind of my 0 to 1% play this week that I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. I think that Delaney Walker is going to be really popular this week because his price tag has gone down a bit, even though it's not a great matchup. So really like Rashard Matthews, who's probably going to get Marcus Peters in that game. And I think that's definitely a beatable part of their secondary.
I like it. Rummy, what do you think about his plays there?
Yeah, no, I like him. I wanted to ask him about Diggs, though. Do you feel like he's a little bit capped, though? I mean, it's a great matchup, obviously, but he's sort of like in that Julian Edelman sphere of just a ton of volume catches and not really that big. I mean, because he could go – his ceiling feels like it's his floor in a way. You know, like every week you know what it is, you know, and I call those guys crawl space players. The ceiling and the floor are very close together. And I mean, I love him. The way he was being utilized early on, you know, he's obviously a big explosive player. And I think this is actually a pretty good week for that to happen. But I would love to see him kind of line up a little bit more outside and still kind of stretch him a little bit because, you know, those little short intermediate things, it's almost like he catches it, falls down, you know, and you're getting a ton of volume. But I really want to see one of those big breakout catches for him where he takes it to the house and then you really make your week that week. But those guys are all in that same category. I mean, if we're going to go pay up a little bit at running back, then, you know, Tyrell Williams, obviously against Oakland, is a great play. We talked about Tyreek, especially with the Kansas City stack. Sammy Watkins, I talked about earlier as well. I mean, I like Sammy. I mean, if you're going to jump on Sammy at the end of the year, you know, right when it matters, you know, jump on Narrative Street, the train on Narrative Street and pull the horn, you know, I think that's probably the time to do it. I think with all the full complement of snaps that he played last week, it could be the week that he gets healthy. Could be next week. Who knows? But if it's this week, you definitely want a little piece of that. And he's in that price range. A lot of those guys in that 6K range, you know, and under that really kind of helps you put some of those top running backs in your lineup.
Yeah, no, I like the call. Stephon Diggs, so you're right. So, Rummy, they've essentially turned him into Jarvis Landry of Minnesota. No, and it's for real because, like, ever since Norv Turner left, Kyle Rudolph has been playing less in the slot, and Stephon Diggs has been playing in the slot 60 to 70% of the time. So, you know, because of that, he's been racking up the catches, and that's obviously a nice thing to have in DraftKings. The reason I think I like him, I want to say he was removed from the injury report. I think he's finally healthy.
Okay.
Another thing is that so the Colts defense is bad to begin with, and now they're in shambles because Clayton Gathers, their starting safety, was just sent to IR. Robert Mathis missed last week. I think he might be out this week. DeQuell Jackson's been suspended for 4 games. Patrick Robinson, he's now out for the season. So they have a lot of injury concerns too. Like that's why for me, I think Stephon Diggs is a solid play. I know a lot of people wanted to play Jerick McKinnon before this whole Adrian Peterson debacle came up. Do we have to talk about Adrian Peterson?
No, not interested.
Good. I'm not either. But I'll give you guys my wide receiver. I think my play of the week that I like Jordan Matthews at 5,400. I love Jordan Matthews. You know, we've talked about this Baltimore-Philly game quite a bit, and we think there's a lot of pass attempts to go around here. Ryan Matthews is going to have a tough time running the ball against this Baltimore defense. On the year, they've only allowed 2.9 yards per carry at home. Ryan Matthews, you know, we don't even know how they're going to distribute the snaps because they don't even have Darren Sproles now. On top of that, you have Jimmy Smith out for the Ravens. He's their top corner. You may have Gerard Powers out. He suffered a concussion against the Patriots on a short week. So you're looking at Sharice Wright possibly covering Jordan Matthews. And before you guys jump on me about that, because you're like, well, wait, Mike, Jordan Matthews plays the slot, and that's not where Sharice Wright plays. That's not true. Jordan Matthews last week, 84% he played on the perimeter. That was a career high. So Jordan Matthews, they're starting to expand his playbook, if you will, and he actually paid some dividends last week. He didn't score, but I think this week is one where he's going to see double-digit targets, and I love him against Baltimore this week.
He should watch that Chris Hogan play from last week.
Oh, Chris Hogan! I don't even want to talk about Chris Hogan, dude. I was so tilting. So a quick story for you guys. I went into Sunday Night Football. Right, it was the Cowboys.
Is this the Brett story?
Brett, with Britt Devine.
Britt Devine, excuse me.
Yeah, in the Dynasty League we played together, I had Des Bryant and Tom Brady to go. I was up 7 points. All he had was Chris Hogan and the Patriots defense. We know how the story ends. And I'm not happy about it. But fortunately, we have DFS to look forward to. So, is there any other bottom guys? So, if you guys are if you're in a tournament or something like that, if you're looking to spend maybe 4,500 or below on a player, anybody that you're interested there?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what I want to do with JJ Nelson yet. I know he's going to be super popular. I just don't see a lot of like punt guys that really interest me kind of on first glance. So, gonna have to go back there. I mean, I think Cameron Meredith's in play. Alshon is back, but it is Green Bay. But I mean, he's still 4,200. So getting all the way down there, I feel like last week people are going to get a little bit too confident in general with some of these really low price guys because pretty much all of them panned out last week. So looking at JJ Nelson in cash games, but in tournaments, I'm still kind of undecided there. What do you guys feel about it?
So wait, you're playing JJ Nelson. So if I give you the decision right now to say JJ Nelson or Allen Robinson, who are you picking?
Oh my God, don't do that to me.
I've
played way too much Allen Robinson this year as it is.
That's actually who I was going to mention next. Actually,
4,400.
I know, dude, and against the team that he torched not too long ago, either Houston.
Yeah,
so.
If you want to get really crazy, you play him and you play Marquise Lee in cash because they're so cheap.
Oh my God,
you can just do whatever you can just do whatever you want after that, and you're going to lock in some targets for sure. They're not going to be anywhere near them, but
living life on the edge, man.
So you're going to have both Atlanta running backs, and then you're going to have two Jacksonville wide receivers in cash. That should work out well.
So here's a fun fact. So I'm going to give you guys a fun fact. So Rummy, I'll let you talk about Allen Robinson too, because here's my case on Allen Robinson. There has been 7 games this year where he's seen 8 or more targets. There's only been one of those games where he scored fewer than 13 DK points, and that was against Denver, which, by the way, nobody scores more than 13 DK points against Denver. So if we can see Allen Robinson getting 8 targets this week against Houston, we can play him, in my opinion. You don't get his upside at 4,400. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of the wide receivers this week, we've got a ton of wide receivers that fit into that category, and it's hard to pass up that many targets. I mean, we know that his ceiling is probably still pretty low, but there's potential for him to kind of break through that one for 1 week, in a divisional matchup, with two teams that really aren't playing for much. I mean, I think it's worth it for him at 4-4.
Yeah, I think Robinson's ownership is going to be like in tournaments, though. I'm just curious. I don't have a good handle on it. I don't feel like.
I think it's going to be micro low.
Yeah.
I mean, just because really, what's he? I mean, I think if he was in like the 800 range, then I think he'd be really highly owned because everybody would be talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't heard like a ton of people. Like, still people are, sharp people that are in podcasts and on websites are like super high on him. They're sort of lukewarm on him still, and they go in with like GPP only and this and that, and which I totally would never play him in cash anyway. But I still think people are still nervous that he's gonna like flatline just because that offense as a whole just is so capable of being awful at any moment.
That's fair.
And I think that's probably why his ownership is still like single digits, like low single digits. I think that's a nice play because I mean you definitely want to get a guy that's under 5% owned in your lineup,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have somebody in the chat right now mentioning that, and I know this too. AJ Boye was out for that game that Allen Robinson did that to the Houston Texans. Now here's an important factoid too. So Jonathan Joseph played that game. Allen Robinson moves around the formation. He doesn't just stay at left corner. He doesn't stay at left wide receiver. Boye does not shadow guys. So is he going to see Boye maybe 45% of the time? Yeah. And is Boye a good corner? Yes. Is he Josh Norman? No. But that's what I'm saying. They're going to move around. So Marquise Lee will see some of them too. In Jacksonville, they're going to get the ball to him. I like him this week at 4,400. I said you don't get that upside at 4,400. One other player I'll mention at wide receiver is Jamison Crowder. We didn't talk about him, but I actually happen to love him. I know he's on the Thursday slate. I'm sure you can get Sunday through Monday slate. But I do like Jamison Crowder an awful lot. All right, guys, let's go talk about tight ends. Joe, who do you like a tight end this week?
Yeah, tight end's kind of wide open this week for me. There's a couple options down low. I think Jermaine Gresham's going to be super chalky at 2,500. I mean, just the targets alone, I think he's a pretty strong play if you're going to pay down, like in cash games and tournaments. More often than not, I'm going to go up a bit. I think that Delaney Walker is going to be his ownership's going to be a little higher just because his price is down, but I'd rather just go all the way up to Travis Kelce, honestly, in tournaments. I mean, there's 14 100-yard receiving games by a tight end since week 8, and Kelce has 5 of them. So that came from something from Chris Raybon this week. I thought that was super interesting, and the Titans have not been super effective against tight ends this year as well. So if I'm paying up, it's probably just going to be for Kelce. If I'm paying down, it's probably going to be for Gresham, and I don't know if I'm going to mess around a whole lot in between.
All right, Rummy, who you got?
I mean, without Gronk on the slate anymore, it's like we don't have anybody that's really super priced high anymore. So it's like you can really kind of take your pick and get creative. Obviously, Rudolph's in a good spot. We talked about how his targets have gone up. Kelsey's probably, the top guy in terms of playing at home. His numbers have gone up consistently every week. He's really hasn't dropped off much. But people were chasing that Ladarius Green this week as well in a very good matchup. His price is still right. And I like Tyler Eifert. I mean, in divisional matchup, I mean, he's still the guy right now. So I like him a lot. I mean, even though his price is a little bit higher, I still like him. I just think there's a lot of good tight ends that you don't necessarily have to pay up for. There's a lot of guys in that range.
Yeah.
And we talked about, because you have so many wide receivers in that, 4 to like 6K range, you could fit in any one of these tight ends really without much problem at all.
Yeah, that's
you don't have to Gronk it in there anymore.
You don't have to Gronk it in there.
Thank God.
Hold on a second, real quick. What about like one totally off the board? Garrett Selleck. What do you guys think?
I thought about him early, but I'm like, oh man, like in a GPP, I can see it because I think game script will have to, San Francisco's going to have to throw.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to look for somebody like him. And he did target him, but I struggle with Colin Kaepernick's choice of targets. Like, how consistent can it be week to week? I think it kind of is a little all over the map. I don't think he's that kind of quarterback who really like singles out certain people.
No. I agree with you. So Torrey Smith's out and Vance McDonald is on IR. So I mean, is he going to target Jeremy Curley 20 times? like Quentin Patton.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
I think they're going to feed. I think they're going to feed Hyde. I think I think that Kaepernick's going to make plays with his feet. He could probably push another 100-yard game with his feet. I think we're close to it this week. And I don't know. I think it's one of those 200-yard games for him in a single touchdown. And we don't know who it's going to. So that's kind of where I struggle with him a little bit, Yeah.
Oh, no, it's totally off the board. Like, believe me, I'm not playing him in cash or anything like that. I just thought it was like something I'd throw out there. I also think Eric Ebron is a good dart throw. He has just as much upside, I think, as anybody on the board here against the Giants. Joe, have you even given any thought to him? My concern is Stafford. That's the only worry there.
Yeah, Selleck isn't really on my radar just because the team total is so low. That's something that really matters to me at tight end because for a position that relies so heavily on touchdowns, they need to be in scoring position. And if their team total is low, it makes you think that Vegas doesn't think they're going to be scoring a lot. So Ebron, I don't know. He's in that range because his price is probably higher than it should be, but he hasn't been getting the red zone targets because of Anquan Bolden. So he's not someone I'm like super interested in. Like I do still have him in my player pool. I haven't made like that final decision on him yet, but I mean, 3,700. I think I would rather either go up to Ladarius Green or just pay up a tiny bit more for Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, I like Rudolph a lot too. I wrote him up this week as a lock, but he's like right in that middle territory. So it's like, do you pay up for Tyler Eifert or Jordan Reed or someone like that? I love Reed. So I also think, so by the way, so I obviously being in Arizona, I can't play in tournaments, but if I was one of those guys like Joe setting, probably like Rummy, setting multiple, like at least 10 to 15 like tournament lineups, you should have some Antonio Gates. And I'm telling you, I know we talk about it every single week, but I'm serious. Like, I think if they get onto the 5-yard line, they will throw to him 3 times in a row. Like, that's my only concern with Kenneth Farrow this week is that these games mean nothing to the Chargers. They mean everything to Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates. So I know it's very narrative. I get it, but I'm just saying I would have at least a couple shares of Antonio Gates. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I like it, man. I would too. And I think that's if Phillip Rivers is going to like force it to anybody this week, it's going to be Antonio Gates.
Yeah. Well, Joe he'll give me crap about it. He'll be like, "Oh, we do this every week with Antonio Gates," and I'm going to say, "Yeah, I know, but one week it's going to work out, right?" That's kind of like you with Allen Robinson before now, right?
I mean, I'm with you. I play Antonio Gates every week. I'm definitely pot committed at this point because the one week I don't play him, he's going to get 3 touchdowns. And I do like Rivers too. That's the other part of it that makes it harder for me to fade Gates is Rivers is a home underdog this week, so probably going to have a little bit of both of them. Probably going to be talking about this next week too.
Yeah, we probably will be. All right, guys, it's time for our tournament lineup. And considering, we have Rummy on as a special guest, he was kind enough to give us an hour of his time. We're going to let you start this thing off, man. So what we do is we all go through, so basically you'll give a pick, Joe will give a pick, then I will, and we'll each pick 3 players for the lineup. Usually when we get down to the last 3, we talk it through. So
okay.
What do you want to start it out with?
All right. Well, let's see. Let me start out with defense then. I'm gonna go cheap. I'm gonna go with the New England defense, man.
You're the man. I love this. I love it. Jake would have been like, Jake should have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna get Le'Veon Bell in there," and I'm like, "Okay." All right. So, should I make it? I don't know. I think Flacco. I love Flacco, but I think he's gonna be really chalky. But what if we stacked him with like Perriman?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But Holka's gonna give me the credit.
No.
So
Perriman. He's gonna be low.
Joe, you can go ahead. It's actually your pick. I started talking out of turn here.
Why is it my pick? You can take the pick.
No, I'm waiting. I'm just gonna allow you to do it. I'm giving you guys the honor today.
All right, Drew Brees, because I don't want to do that.
What?
Drew Brees it is, dude. All right. So
how much is Brees, by the way? Because I'm not looking at anything.
6,600. Yeah.
Gotcha. 6,600. All right. So since we're paying up a quarterback, I am not going to allow Joe to. I'm not allowing Joe to pay up for one of the top guys. So
shit.
I'm torn.
This is how our lineups work. We just try and back each other into corners of what we actually want to do on our own.
I'm either doing LaShawn McCoy or Devonta Freeman.
McCoy, baby. Let's do it.
All right, McCoy.
I like it. All right. So it's back to me now again?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I got to get another running back in here. I'm going to go with Blunt, man. Since I'm going New England D, let's go LeGarrette Blunt.
All right. Good correlation.
Cool. That's only $5K, man. So
yeah, no, it saves some money.
Let me make sure I'm not handcuffing us here before I say this one.
So Joe, I was about to say, Joe, before you make your pick, are you concerned at all? So do you think Patrick Peterson shadows Brandon Cooks? No. I think he's on Michael Thomas. I think he actually plays sides, and he'll see Michael Thomas more often than Brandon Cooks.
That's the exact guy I was checking to see what his price was. I think Cooks probably has the best matchup out of any of them, right? Especially if Matthew plays and he ends 100%. Up on Snead. So
Marcus Cooper, yeah.
The guy I was going to put in was Cooks, so let's go with that.
I like it, actually. I like it. With all the talk that Patrick Peterson's going to cover him, I think it's good. I think it's a good play. Let's see. So do I want to spend up at wide receiver, or do I want to just pick a tight end at this point? If I picked Mike Evans, would it totally screw us? I think it would.
It's pretty expensive.
What do we have Cooks at? What number?
He said 62.
62. That's not bad.
So I can go Mike Evans, or I can go down to Jordan Matthews. I like Matthews a lot. I think that Mike Evans, I think you're going to get him a lower ownership than normal, just because he's coming off to a recency bias thing where you can get him lower than he should be owned. He's 8,300 against Dallas inside. We don't have to worry about weather in that game. Morris Claiborne's not playing. They don't have a cornerback to cover it. What are they going to do? Anthony Brown, Brandon Carr? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think Evans is a solid play. And if we get a cheap tight end in there, it'll allow us roughly 5,000 for a wide receiver or 5,000 each for a wide receiver and a flex.
Okay, cool. So Evans is at what? How much?
83.
83. Okay. All right. So back to me. Let's see. So we have to get another wide receiver, and we have to
wide receiver, tight end, and a flex. That's what we got left. So this is where we can talk about it. And
I listen. I'm going to put at home. I mean, it's a huge game. That it's a team that's really kind of on a roll right now. All of their complements are coming together. Offense, special teams, defense. They're all really playing at a high level. So let's put the freak in there, Tyreek.
Nice,
Tyreek. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty contrarian right now, so I think we can definitely just take that cheap volume with Kenneth Farrow and the flex.
Nice.
Right. 4,400.
Farrow. I think I've been saying it wrong the entire day.
Farrow Fawcett, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So wait, we don't have enough money.
Oh, do you not?
No, Farrow's 44, and that would leave us 2,100.
Oh,
Jesus.
dang.
So if we
Evans,
here, so how about this? How about I'll put hold on, let me put Gresham in. Let's see where it gets us. We could always take out Evans. Like I didn't want to screw us, but so we put in Gresham. That leaves you 4,000 at flex.
Okay.
Jesus.
So you have potential Ryan Matthews there.
Wow.
No, I mean the thing I would actually.
What's Rashard Matthews at?
Rashard Matthews is.
I think he's too expensive.
Yeah, he's up at 46. Yeah. So yeah, I liked McKinnon honestly before the whole AP news. I felt like this could have been McKinnon's game. He's been running better lately. They've been giving him touches. Asiata is now questionable. Like he's been downgraded. So, but again, if Adrian Peterson's playing, he just goes and screws my day up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can go Marquise Lee there if we want to keep Evans. I think that's probably our best option. What do you guys think about Marquise Lee? I think he's still underpriced for sure.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely.
I think that can work. Are you guys averse to like? This is just we talking flex right now.
Yeah.
Are you guys averse to like tight end in flex or no?
Well, it depends. Well, so who would you put? So the only thing is who would you put there? Bennett.
How about Kyle Rudolph? Can we squeeze him in?
Well, Rudolph
short.
We're 300
shit.
Yeah, and we're also 100 short for Antonio Gates. So I was looking at him.
Oh man!
If we went down to Oakland, well, we have the correlation with Blunt on the Patriots, so I won't do that.
Yeah.
Man, I'm screwing us with this whole Mike Evans thing, aren't I? But honestly,
pretty much, dude. Yeah.
But he's like the only one that I'm like I consider a lock at the top. Otherwise, I can go down to like Larry Fitzgerald, and that would buy us 1,300. So, but then
do you like any other wide receivers instead of Tyreek? Because he's all the way up to 5,700 now.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, if we went down to Jordan Matthews at 54, that gives us 300 to play with.
Yeah.
And who was it 4,300 that you liked, Joe?
Rashard Matthews. But
because you have to scroll way down to like
that's true.
And that's like it's like no man's land after.
Oh, Kyle Rudolph is 43.
Yeah.
I
mean, do we leave some money on the board and plug in Ladarius?
Could he was on the field very much last week though? Are you worried about that at all? I mean, upside definitely is there. They're trying to get him.
Yeah, I know. That's what frustrates me about that. But
it's hard. It's just a scary play. Like I had him a bit last week, like everyone else, but.
Yeah. Is Chris Ivory going to play?
Don't know.
I haven't heard.
I haven't heard either because TJ Yeldon has averaged like 7 catches when he's out. But I mean, I'm not excited about playing TJ Yeldon. I think he's just like a filler, which was kind of like what Farrow was going to be. Oh God, man. I'm torn. Like I said, if we go Tyreek to Jordan Matthews, then we could put in Antonio Gates at 41. Or we can go to Kyle Rudolph at 43.
Let's do Gates. We've been talking about Gates for weeks, and he owes us.
He owes us. That he does. All right. I like it though. Like honestly, like it's totally different than I would ever create. But I'm saying this is a totally it's a unique lineup. So again, guys, if you're watching this show, do not play this lineup in cash. That is not what we're here to do.
Never.
Never. No. If you guys want to talk about cash lineups on Sunday mornings, I do the live show, twitch.tv/lightsoutfantasy. I from 11 to 12, I take all your sit-start questions, DFS questions, and at the end of that show, we build a DFS lineup that, like I said, last week it was 11 of 13. Now we're 11 of 14, so still doing well. Rummy, dude, thanks for joining us. We obviously had a blast with you. Anything you wanted to pimp out while you're here?
Yeah, I forgot to mention this early on. Get that cough under control, Mike, for Christ's sake. Yeah, because some of the we talked about, and Joe had mentioned this too, about differentiating yourself in GPPs. There's a great service at UF Collective on Twitter. He's got a website where he basically aggregates all of the ownership predictions from all the different fantasy sites and also aggregates some of the actual Thursday numbers from like Fantasy Aces and some other sites that put out their ownership numbers. Takes all those, it basically emails you on Friday afternoon and also an update on Sunday when the numbers change again. And he's been pretty accurate. It's a good site. They do a really nice job over there, and it's well worth it. So it's a nominal fee really. And I think right now for the rest of the season it's like $10. So get on that, check it out. Follow them at UF Collective on Twitter.
Very cool. That sounds like a pretty neat service. And if you're a serious DFS player, like $10 is nothing, guys. Like I tell people that all the time. And like when I play DFS, like, maybe, a couple lineups a week and, maybe like $50. Yeah. Spending like $30 on a membership or $60 on a membership, whatever the case may be, it seemed like a lot of money considering what you're investing. But if you're playing a lot of DFS, like honestly, some of these tools that you should have just to add to your research, they make all the sense in the world. Joe, anything you wanted to say before we get out of here?
No, that's it. Good luck to everyone in the FanDuel Championship this week. And, man, week 15. I can't believe it. We're almost to the end already. So
it is nuts. Yeah, we got 2 more shows for you guys. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We've had a blast talking with you guys. And again, make sure to check out our sponsor, rototracker.com/POR, because what that does is it shows them that you guys are supporting the show. And obviously they want to keep supporting our show. So therefore, we're always back here. So anyways, thank you guys as always for tuning in. Thanks again, Rummy, for coming on, hanging out with us. We had a blast. Hopefully one of you guys plays this tournament lineup and it wins you a whole bunch of money. And if it does, come share the wealth with us. But until next time, guys, lights out.